Hey y'all, this is lesson 5 for Wednesday, September the 2nd for the virtual class. So go ahead, if you're on this, you're already on Classroom. If you'll just scroll down, you'll see a list of things you need to do. So first is the bell ringer, make sure you did that for Wednesday. So you should have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday done at this point. Number 2 says review the slideshow. That is what I'm going to do with you on here. Please make sure that you actually listen to this presentation. I'm doing this for you, not for myself. And hopefully this will help with clear up some of the confusion that I know some of y'all have had just having to do this by yourself. I know that can be difficult. So give me just a second and I will go through the slides with you. I'm not sure why this thing's taking so long. Maybe because I'm recording. All right. So, yesterday in class, when you were here, we looked at the poem that was written about the painting called Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. So, today we're going to look at a new poem called Musée de Beaux Arts, written by W.H. Auden. And we're going to look at author's choice and structure and how it impacts the text meaning. So this is also, y'all remember that text comparison chart that you have, you're going to need that. But remember, I told you at the end of this section, there's going to be an essay that you're going to have to write to compare the 3 transformations to the original text. And I told you the original text was that very first story of Icarus and Daedalus that we read. So this is the final interpretation of that. So you're going to need the poem, which I've attached on Classroom, phrase resource handout, that's also up there. So is the phrase poetry handout, and then 2 different color highlighters. If you were in my first block virtual, we did not get the workbooks in time for y'all to get a copy of it. So you're going to have to either print or do it on the computer. And then when you come to class on Thursday, you can get your workbook and actually write in it. But the rest of you, my third block virtual, you have the workbook. So you're going to be able to do all this on paper is what I'm trying to say. All right, so if you look at this prompt, it says many authors have drawn on and transformed Ovid's original myth of Daedalus and Icarus. After reading the source text and 3 interpretations, write a well-developed essay that explains how the different depictions of Icarus's death establish the central idea of man's failure. Be sure to compare each interpretation to the source text, including what is present and what is omitted. Use grade level words and phrases to add voice and style to your response. So basically, this is what your assessment is going to look like for section 1, which is lessons 1 through 7. So once we're done with all these transformations and we go into detail with them a little bit more, you're going to be able to write this essay. Should be able to with no problem. So we're going to read this together. I have a copy right here in front of me. You make sure that you're looking at your copy while I'm reading mine to make sure that you're following along on that. So keep in mind what we talked about with failure, our previous discussions of failure and different types of man's failure. Think about that while we're reading the poem. About suffering, they were never wrong. The old masters, how well they understood its human position, how it takes place. While someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along, how, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen. Skating on a pond at the edge of the wood, they never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course. Anyhow, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had to on the white legs disappearing into the green water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to go and sailed calmly on. So I don't expect you to know what this poem is talking about yet, but by the end, you're going to be a pro at this poem. So if you look at the screen again, it says the word position is in bold. What is the impact of the word position? So you're going to consider these questions. Who or what is the pronoun it's referring to? So about suffering, they were never wrong. The old masters, how well they understood its human position. So what is it's referring to? So think about that. What is the traditional meaning of the word position? And what is it suffering? What is suffering's position in life? What is suffering's job? So who is it's referring to? That's kind of what we have to look at first. If you go back and reread it a couple of times, it'll kind of start coming out to you. So about suffering, they were never wrong. The old masters, how well they understood its human position. We're talking about suffering. So the it's is human suffering. What is the traditional meaning of the word position? Well, position, usually when I think of that word, I think about where you're located or where something is located or even your job title. And then what is suffering's position in life? So when does suffering happen? Who does it happen to? Suffering can happen to anybody, anytime, pretty much. And then what is suffering's job? So what is suffering's purpose? And then how does the use of the word position legitimize suffering? So basically, suffering is going to happen to people whether they deserve it or not, whether they want it or not. It is a part of life, and that is its position. I mean, it is what it is. We've all experienced some sort of suffering, whether it's been to us personally or to someone we know, or even, I mean, we've even seen it on TV. If you haven't had anything happen in your life, which is great, but if you haven't, then you might not be able to connect with that. But you should have at least seen something like that on TV. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is you are going to add these three words to your vocab chart. The first word, this should be number 7. We should have 6 words already on there. Number 7 will be martyrdom. Number 8 is forsaken. And number 9 is reverently. So you're going to go and make sure you have the correct definition. Or remember what I told you, when you look words up, go back to the original text. So this poem, Musée de Beaux Arts, and make sure the definition that you're using matches or goes with that. So you take the word out of the poem and then put your definition. And does it make sense? If it doesn't, it's probably not the right one. And then you're going to fill out the impact on the text after that. So if you look at your phrase resource handout that I attached for you, and those of you that have your workbook, it's in there. Prepositional phrases begin with a preposition and provide a description in a sentence. If you look at prepositions, to, around, under, over, like, as, behind. This is just a review. Y'all should already know what prepositions are. But if you don't, just take a minute to review that. And then a positives and a positive phrases, and a positive renames a noun. So if you look at the examples, my teacher, comma, a woman with curly hair, comma, is very fat. So the appositive in that sentence would be a woman with curly hair. So Bowser, comma, the dog with sharp teeth, comma, is coming around the corner. So Bowser is the noun. The dog with sharp teeth, the dog with sharp teeth renames Bowser. So basically anything that you can set off with commas that you add to a sentence to describe a noun, or to rename a noun, set it off with commas. If it can be removed and the sentence still makes sense, it's an appositive. So Bowser is coming around the corner. That still makes sense. My teacher is very fat. That still makes sense. Okay, so what you're going to do next is, if you have an actual paper copy of this, you can use real highlighters and do it. If you have just this, hold on, I'm trying to get out of here. If you have this copy, I have made one for each student. Well, I haven't, but I'm going to do that now. So you should be able to go on here, open it. There's your poem. You're going to click, if it'll ever load, you're going to click on the little highlighter button. Y'all see that? And then you're going to click whatever colors you pick. So if you're going to highlight prepositional phrases in yellow, you'll pick yellow. Go in and find your prepositional phrases. This is not one, so don't highlight this. I'm just showing you. Oh, dang it. That didn't work. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. Well, I don't know why my highlighter's not working. Well, there we go. I don't know why it wasn't working a second ago. But anyway, you go and let me try this again so I can show you what this looks like. So we're going to highlight the old masters. This is not a prepositional or an appositive phrase. I am simply showing you how to use the highlighter. And you just pick whatever color you want and it's highlighted. Okay? So you're going to highlight that, and you know it's in Google Docs, so it's going to save it for you. But let's go back over here to the lesson. So you're going to highlight prepositional phrases in one color and appositives in another color. So you're going to have to kind of go back and forth from one document to another. And give me just a second. I'm going to kind of look. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick on my other computer over here. Almost there, y'all. Hold on just a second. Okay. All right, I'm just going to cut this. But anyway, so go ahead and highlight through there. It should take you about 10, 15 minutes to get that done. For appositives and appositive phrases, there are only about 2 examples of that from the poem. And for prepositional phrases, there are about 5. So you should have 5 prepositional in one color and around 2 appositive phrases in another. Okay, so looking back on all of your discussion or all of our discussions, how do you think the author or poet feels about Icarus's death? So in this poem, how do you think the author feels about Icarus's death? If you look kind of at this bottom part, in Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster, and he talks about the plowman. A boy falling out of the sky. I mean, how do you think he feels? Do you think he feels negative or indifferent or positive? Go back and kind of look at some of these words they use, suffering and miraculous, passionately. It looks like there may be a pretty good balance of negative and positive words. So maybe this author is indifferent, but you kind of have to think about that and see what your thoughts are. So, but if you go back and look at those words, and you can do it on your document. Go through and circle all the positive, all the connotation. I cannot talk. All the words with positive connotation, and then go back and circle all the ones with negative connotation. And which one do you see more of? So let's look at the negative. Let's go ahead and do this. So suffering, martyr or dreadful would be negative. Martyrdom is a negative, has a negative connotation. Torturer's horse, disaster, forsaken. Um, those are all negatively connotated words. And then positive would be words like passionately, miraculous, innocent, leisurely. So amazing's another one, sorry. So I think that there's probably a pretty good balance. And that to me makes me think that the author's attitude towards Icarus is indifferent. So he doesn't have really a negative view of it, but he doesn't have really a positive one either. All right, excuse me. So here is the the more confusing part. So I need you to kind of stay with me here. If you look at this phrase poetry sheet, and if you have your workbook right now, that's going to be third block that has their workbook. This is going to be on page 227 in your workbook. So page 227, and this says you and your partner. This PowerPoint was made when we could work in partners, and we obviously can't, plus you're at home, so that's a problem. This is going to be something that you're going to have to do by yourself. It generally takes about 30 or 45 minutes, but that's usually with me being able to go through and check it, but I'm not there to check it for you, so you're going to have to kind of do this on your own. So what you're going to do, if you look at the top of this phrase poetry handout, you'll see a box that has topics in it that says failure, pride, greed, power, and misfortune. Pick one of those and circle it if you have your workbook. If you don't, just write it down. Failure, pride, greed, power, or misfortune. Which one of those topics can you relate to the most? That's the one that you need to pick. Once you pick one, don't go back and change it, because this is already going to take enough time, and we don't have time to keep going back and forth. So once you pick that, then you're going to go to the next section that says patterns. Pattern number 1 and pattern number 2. You have to pick either number 1 or number 2. You're not doing both. So pick a topic, pick a pattern. Do you want to write yours like pattern number 1, where you have to have a gerund phrase on one line, gerund phrase on the next, gerund phrase on the next, then your next line's an independent clause, and then the last 4 lines are all prepositional phrases? Or do you want to do pattern number 2, where you have an independent clause with a positive phrase in it as your first line? Line number 2 is a participle phrase, and then the last 4 lines are participle phrases. So your poem, whichever topic you pick, whatever poem, whatever one you write about, has to follow either pattern number 1 or pattern number 2. And if you have no idea what gerund phrases are, independent clauses, or any of that stuff, go back to your phrase resource handout, and all of this is on here. Now, independent clause is not on there, but y'all should know what that is. But I will remind you, don't worry. An independent clause is nothing more than a complete sentence. That's it. It has a subject, a verb, and it forms a complete thought. So and neither one of these, pattern 1 or 2, is easier than the other one. So don't try to look at it and go, oh, okay, which one's easier? It doesn't matter. They're both going to cause you the same amount of work. So don't try to get out of it just based on that. If you look at the bottom where it says models, you cannot copy these poems. This is just an example for you to look at to be able to write yours. So the one on the left follows pattern number 1. The one on the right, this one right here, follows pattern number 2. So if you're doing pattern number 1, depending on what your topic is, it may look similar to this. If you're doing pattern number 2, depending on what your topic is. So pick a topic, choose a pattern, write your poem about that topic. It doesn't have to be about Icarus or Daedalus or Macbeth or anybody else that we have talked about. It can be about your life. It can be about school. It can be about anything school appropriate, sports, whatever it is you want to write about, as long as it's about that topic that you picked. Your poem has to follow that. So if you pick failure, your poem can't talk about how you won a competition and got a trophy, because that's not failure. So make sure that your that your poem follows your topic. Stay on topic. Don't get off topic. Write your poem, and I will be taking that up. So that needs to be written on paper. So everyone, even third block, B-Day, please write this poem on paper. Don't do it on the computer and turn it in that way. Okay? This should take you a little while. If you do it in 2 or 3 minutes, it's probably not going to be correct. So please make sure that you put some effort into it, make an attempt. We're going to spend a lot of time on this in class too. So I hope that you do that at home also. Okay, and the next thing, the last thing I believe for this lesson is the comparison chart. That is the same comparison chart that we have been writing on. So take that, fill out this next row. So you have the brief summary, major details, and then the central idea. So what could you write for a brief summary? Well, the first line I'm going to give you, the old masters knew about life and suffering. Okay, that can be your first sentence for your summary, but you need to have a few more sentences to go with that. And remember what I told y'all in class. I told y'all, I haven't seen y'all in a week except for, until today. If you don't understand something that you read and you're at home and you don't have me here to help you, Google it. So Google this poem. If you don't understand what in the world they're saying, go online, Google it, look at a summary, see what you can find. Come up with your own summary though, in your own words. I encourage you to go online and look up summaries to stuff that we read if you don't understand it, because especially if you're not here, that makes sense to me. I just don't want you copying it and then using it for your work, because that's not gonna work. All right, so come up with a brief summary. And then for your major details, I have put the line numbers for you, but you're going to have to go back to the poem. And some of y'all, it might help to number the lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I counted 21 lines. So go ahead and number those lines if that makes it easier for you. You don't have to. And then you're going to list those major details that are in those lines. Do you have to quote the line exactly? No, you don't have to write the whole line out. Just paraphrase it. Put it in your own words. Fill in those blanks. Then move over here to the central idea about man's failure. So once you've read up online about the summary and what the poem's about, you write your summary, you put your details, then you come up with that theme or that life lesson. And remember, it doesn't include any of the characters or any of the precise details from the poem. It is a general statement about what lesson this author is trying to teach you by reading this. Okay? So if you have any questions, send me a remind. Don't email me because I don't always see those right away. And I will try to help you the best that I can. This is actually my very first recording I've ever done, so I'm sorry if my voice is annoying or I've stopped too much or paused too much or said or like a lot, but I will get better at it. Hopefully this helped you and you'll be able to do this on your own, and we will look at it when we get to class on Thursday. I'll see y'all Thursday. So y'all have a good day and make sure you get your work done.